The Space God Memoirs. Season 2, Episode 34. I was out of options. So scraggin' close to my goal, but blocked. To one side of me was the yawning exit to the Vaer's central hangar, overlooking the depths of space. Plenty of starships to be had, but the one I could certainly fly was now destroyed. There were over 30 enemy soldiers encircling me, the red-armored Phizar each ready to blast me should I make a move. I would have run back, but the chamber's entrance was entirely blocked by a mass of writhing black tentacles. Lord Governor Gurvath, chief of the Vaer. Only minutes ago I had seen him as a normal man, tending to his beloved pets. Now he was back in monster mode, and looking ready to engulf me. The Vaer leader's bulk expanded, the massed tentacles flowing into the chamber. His troopers began to back away, but kept their sights aimed at me. Tendrils swarming in front of me, soldiers at my rear. I looked desperately for where I could go. In seconds, Gurvath loomed 20 feet over me, an assemblage of black tendrils around an enormous leering face, his eyes once more taking on that red glow. A tendril whipped at me. Before I could dodge, it had wrapped around my leg, gripped tight. Another around my opposite arm. I was trapped. A third tendril roped its way down my other leg and easily drew out the info ball where the blueprints were. I tried to break free, but there wasn't even a struggle. Gurvath held on with godly might, and all my Atra was gone. Such trouble over this relic, said Gurvath, holding me in place with his many limbs, while the one tendril drew it closer to his hovering visage. Strange that your people would go to such effort to steal it. Not only once, but twice. Well, I tend not to be too fond of bad guys building doomsday devices, you know, I answered, trying to sound confident despite being utterly immobilized. A doomsday device? Gurvath shook his head, laughing. We have no need of such. What lay within that old lab was a curiosity, nothing more. It was on my list of items to fully identify and decode, but then your Naiar decided to launch this unprovoked attack upon us. And they sent you. You've heard of me, eh? I winked at his huge, glaring face. The tentacles tightened, my limbs starting to hurt. You are the sneak who Minali encountered in the hidden laboratory. Yes. The Naiar recruit who they stole from us when they illegally hijacked our Ascension Tower. The one and only Keph. I tried smiling, but it probably came off as more of a pained grimace. My mind was coming up blanks on how I'd get out of this one. From somewhere beyond the room came a reverberating noise, like a distant collision. By all rights, you should have ascended into the Vaer Unity, continued Gurvath, raising me to his eyes level. The trials were yet attuned to our specifications, not the Naiar's. And I examined your records within the afterlife matrix and the tower itself. You ascended through trickery, evasion, and tenacity alone. You would have succeeded no matter which side was administering the trials, Keph. Ha! Like I'd ever have joined you bunch of Dugga-kissers. I've seen what you lot did to Aruvis and its people. I'm not keen on making myself into a villain. No, we are not the villains here. Aruvis is ours, by right and by treaty. It is the Naiar who have invaded our space, who subverted our recruitment procedure, and who are now attacking us unprovoked, all while their agent, you, attempts to infiltrate our headquarters. It is most unfortunate that you have fallen for their programming. You would have made a fine addition to the Vaer. The talent of the stealth mind is most uncommon indeed, and we would have used it in far more effective ways than sending you on a suicide mission. His tentacles were pulling me from both ends, my limbs stretching painfully apart. Any more and he'd tear me in two. Maybe we still could, I began, stalling. I mean, we could be friends. Work together, even. I didn't think I fully meant it, but it was either that or get ripped in half. Truly interesting. Gervath's eyes met mine, and I could sense his will boring into my own, heavy and immense. I reactively fell into stealth mind, trying to keep my thinking at a minimum. Your thoughts are slippery things, little recruit. Difficult to fully discern. It is a surprise that linking with the Naiar's network did not fully program you to their madness. Or you lie. We shall soon see. Keep calm, Keph. Hold out as long as you can. Help is on the way. Zirathra. Her presence rang in my mind briefly, before the connection rapidly departed. Join us. The red glamour of Gervath's eyes faded, revealing forest green orbs. Within them, there was still a power, yes, but a power calm and invigorating. The strength of a philosopher, of a teacher. His offer was a living thing, a force, waiting for me to take it in. I sorta wanted it, I admit. Behind Gervath's psyche, there was that other presence, that overwhelming energy I'd felt earlier. The roiling, churning essence of freedom, of raw emotion and pure connection that was the Vaer mind. The Vaer unity, as they called themselves, connected to nature, liberated from Naiar restraints, free to do what they would. These people were not monsters, despite appearances. Superimposed over Gervath's body was another figure, like some grand butterfly, its wings reaching across the room. At its center, a person-like face of sheer, dreadful beauty, its form surging with a flow of rainbow colors. The fortress shook, the room vibrating, a pounding noise from somewhere beyond this hangar. Was that the battle? Were the fortress's shields still off? Gervath reached towards me, in the spirit along with the body. An offer. Behind him loomed the grand awareness of the collective Vaer, like a sea of hopes and promises, filled with warmth and freedom. This was my chance to join them, to be one of them. Images surged through my mind of beautiful people playing amid the jungles of paradise planets, of fierce warriors and brilliant artists who could craft worlds to their liking. With them, I could sail freely through the stars, unrestrained by regulations and moral codes. I could create the life I wanted, mold my own destiny. There was a quality to it all, a feeling of returning back to a home I'd never known. It was welcoming me. It was warmth, life, vitality. The Vaer unity was ready to embrace me in its sensual touch. Yet there was something that just didn't feel right. A rot among its sweetness, a sense of wrong that grinded in my gut when I looked at it. Then I thought of the Naiar, of that noble lizard Jabir who had trained me and fought by my side, of the calm and caring Demanya, of Zirathra and the connection I still felt to her. I returned to that ancient temple complex, housing statues of all those exalted old Naiar. They were good people too. Even if they did some scragged up stuff at times, they tried hard to follow their moral codes, their virtues. And after all they'd done for me, I just couldn't abandon them. Not when the Vaer had been the ones oppressing my homeworld for centuries, setting up their murder cults, destroying civilizations, forcing decent folks to struggle, fight and starve, just to be cycled back into a pointless afterlife system. Scrag 'em. I snapped back to the present moment, pulling away from the power of that immensity. I knew that if I had gone a step further, I may have drowned in that ocean of presence. I was covered in sweat, my whole body shaking. "No," I managed to hoarsely whisper. A bright light came from behind me, shining upon Gervath's dark bulk. His grip on me loosed, enough for me to look backward, towards the mouth of the hangar. The view of the stars was now blocked by an immense pentagonal wall, golden and covered in Naiar runes. That was the side of one of the dodecahedrons, the Naiar flagships I'd seen careening through the enemy fleet on my way in. They were here. Of course they were here. I had turned off the shields. The Naiar had sensed that and had moved into attack.
"Treachery!"
yelled Gervath, the room shaking in his booming voice.
"You will die for this sabotage, and your soul shall be imprisoned for 1,000 cycles of torment."
His tentacle grip tightened. One of the golden symbols on the Dodec's side began to glow. A beam cascaded from it, hurtling through a group of soldiers, and then striking Gervath on the side. He howled in pain as light flashed across the chamber. The tentacle around my arms loosened, just enough. I lowered my hand to my belt and flung my twist blade out. In one downward slash, I cut through the remaining tendrils holding me. I fell to the floor as the Lord Governor flailed, chunks of inky flesh sloughing from the huge wound the ship's laser had dealt him. I rolled back and scurried to my feet. A door opened up in the side of the invading Naiar vessel, silver-armored Nentael warriors already jetting forth from it, some of them rushing to engage the Vaer Phizar in battle, while others landed near the entrance of the docking bay and raised their guns, blasting away. As the opposing combatants launched into a melee, I backpedaled out of Gervath's reach, dodging tentacles that whipped at my feet. He was slowing down, in pain. That blast had weakened him. Just behind me, the Naiar and the Vaer were clashing. Lasers firing through the air, weapons colliding, bodies hitting the floor. I ran sideways, putting a large starship between myself and the towering god. I paused there, ready to fight any Phizar who came my way. But none did, all their attention focused on the Naiar flagship's open cavity. From it emerged another salvo of Naiar forces. At their lead was Demania, her yellow figure floating in the air, surrounded in a geometric nimbus of light like a shield. Behind her, Jabir flipped and bounded across the docking bay, his tail flailing at opponents while he pummeled them with his bladed staff. Soon the two factions were engaged in a rumble, shiny metallic elegance versus primal bio-sorcery. I crouched behind a parked ship, feeling wasted, and knowing I wouldn't be much help with my Atra utterly drained. One peek backward, and I could see the enormous flailing tentacles of Gervath. Hopefully he was too preoccupied to hunt me down. But of course, Gervath wasn't the only being here. 5 of his Phizar stepped around the rim of my hiding place. 2 of them aimed at me with their staves and blasted, electrical energy surging. I was able to sidestep those. Even Atraless, my Naiar reflexes were still better than those basic bitch slimers. But the others were now upon me, 3 of them in melee range, swinging with their powered weapons. My limbs ached as I raised my twist blade, ready to defend myself. I felt a sudden buoyancy as I was lifted straight off the ground by an invisible force, a shimmering white barrier around me. 3 of the Phizar fired at me, but their blasts were absorbed into that field. Off to my side, hovering just above the nearby starship, was Demania, floating cross-legged inside of a field similar to the one around me, the gem in her forehead glowing as she held up a single hand, smiling warmly. Jabir flashed onto the scene with a blur, appearing with his heightened speed and slamming his bladed staff right into 2 of the Phizar, hitting one with each end of it and sending both to the ground, where fluids began to splutter out of their armored shells. The 3rd Phizar was about to poke at my reptilian friend with his own staff when a blast of energy struck him in the back. He collapsed, smoke rising from his remains. Demania winked at us both as she lowered me to the ground. "Thanks all," I said with a wave. Jabir shook his tail and gave me a toothy smile. Demania nodded her head in acknowledgement. Both then turned away, heading for a trio of nearby Viglae. As the battle continued to shake the immense docking bay, I did my best to remain unseen, peeking out from behind the wing of a Vaer ship. Though my Naiar allies didn't seem to be having much trouble with the Phizar, Lord Gurvath was another matter. Though weakened, his enormous bulk still shambled about the chamber, his thousands of tendrils moving him like jelly over the parked starships. He would thrash out with uncounted limbs, striking down any Nentael who got in his way, or absorbing them into his expanding mass. Jabir launched himself into the air, attempting a high leap towards Gurvath's face as he plunged his polearm forward. Jabir was fast, but Gurvath was faster, thwacking the lizard man in the side with a trunk-sized tentacle. Jabir was thrust away, landing on his back with a groan. Damanya managed to land a few energy blasts, but the Overgod seemed barely slowed. By then more Vaer had entered the battle from deeper in the satellite. Huge furry warriors, black-shelled insectoids, or humanoids of diverse appearances. All leaped into the fray against my comrades. Scrag, it was getting crowded in here. So much fighting, but I had been finished a long time ago. I watched as Naiar and Vaer clashed, with exotic weapons and energy beams, with guns and blades and atra. My sight was then drawn to a flash of light, coming from the opening into the Naiar flagship. Savaharthas floated from that opening, crystal and body aglow with an inner light that shone from beneath translucent skin, an aqua blue emanating from the speaker's emerald flesh. He hovered forward. Huge wings spread out around him, and as Savaharthas went, beams of searing blue light would rapidly blast from his aura, vaporizing the soldiers they struck. Within seconds, the majority of the Phizar were gone, disintegrated into the nethers. Savaharthas hovered in front of Gurvath's face, a fraction of the Vaer leader's bulk, but brimming with power. Gurvath had an immense tendril raised, ready to strike, while the Naiar was aglow with building energy that looked like it was going to explode. I could almost smell the tension. Several more waves of Naiar warriors poured from the open capital ship's entry, until the door finally closed, though the dodecahedron remained in place, blocking the exit. Gurvath sneered, swinging his tentacle at Savaharthas. The Naiar speaker zipped sideways, avoiding it in the air, then firing a beam of searing energy at Gurvath's body. The Vaer leader grunted in pain, but did not fall. They began to fight. At one point, a tentacled mass caught the Naiar in its path, wrapping around Savaharthas as it squeezed him against a nearby wall. He was hidden from view, his light snuffed out, black tendrils enwrapping him like a holiday gift. Then a single beam of energy burst out from the squirming prison, followed by more and more. The massive limbs exploded, revealing the Naiar speaker glowing with radiance. I watched from my relatively safe spot while tendrils struck out across the chamber and lights blinked, leaving behind shining trails as Savaharthas dodged each blow. Everything seemed to move faster and faster as I continued to observe, barely able to keep up with it at all. Savaharthas was moving so quick that there appeared to be multiple copies of him up there, zipping through the air. And then there were multiples of him. I blinked and saw 3 of him, just hovering there at opposite ends of the room. Each of them raised their wings aloft, and beams of searing blue energy shot out, colliding with Gurvath simultaneously. The Vaer let out a roar of pain as the energy coursed into him, slumping a bit but not falling. "Enough!" intoned Savaharthas. The runes on the wall of the 12-sider began to glow again. "You have the weapons of a capital ship trained upon you. They are ready to fire. This is over." Gurvath lowered his flailing tentacles, letting most of them sink into his form. Savaharthas' duplicates grew translucent as they phased back into his main body, which he floated towards Gurvath until they were eye to eye once again.
"What is the meaning of this invasion?"
Gurvath glared at Savaharthas.
"The Naiar are clearly in violation of Section 12 of the Chenal Accord, prohibiting aggressive activity in non-contested systems."
"You are quite mistaken," replied Sevaharthas. "It is not we who are in violation of the Chenal Accord, but you. The Vaer of Aruvis are in possession of banned technology, namely a zero-point hypershift engine tapping into the void. Per the accord which you seek to quote, such devices are banned for their destructive capabilities, and even possession of plans for them is grounds for our liberation effort."
This is absurd. I know of no such device.
"You hold the plans for it grasped in your tendrils."
This is from the planet's surface, a relic. We had not even begun to analyze what it was. This very same relic is what you sent your own agent to retrieve.
Sevaharthas lifted up one hand. The info ball shook in Gurvath's grasp and then popped out, hovering in the air one moment before it landed in the Naiar leader's hand. He glanced at it only a second, before searing blue flame ascended from his palm and consumed the orb in its fire. It was then nothing but a layer of white dust. Obliterated. My heart sank. Banned technology? But the Naiar had sent us to retrieve it from Aruvis in the first place. I'd fought, killed, even died to get it. Now Mr. Shiny Birdman had just disintegrated the blueprints in less than a second. What in the green ocean was going on here? I wondered if I had just been played. Sevaharthas expanded his wings out, the energy spinning in a circle around him. Whatever Keph's goals were, he was acting on his own, not under Naiar commands. Our records will show that. Our initiate was under detention when he stole one of our craft and used it to sneak aboard your fortress here, clearly for personal reasons.
Where he proceeded to shut off our shields, allowing your invasion.
Liberation. Keph's actions may have been beneficial to us, but it is only by coincidence that they work in our favor here. As you can see, we are already in the process of disabling your fleet in order to seize the station and liberate this world from your tyranny. Gurvath let out a disappointed sigh.
I see. This is how it is going to be. I truly despise this sort of politics. But I suppose I have little choice now. Do what you will.
We are officially liberating the world of Aruvis from Vaer influence, intoned Sevaharthas. Due to the violations of the Chenal system accords, the Vaer relinquish their hold on this planet and transfer it to Naiar control. Your commanding officers and yourself will be physically destroyed, and your awareness eventually returned to your own faction at the legally agreed-upon ransom. Sevaharthas raised his right arm. Each of the capital ship's runes began to glow with a heightened intensity until a concentrated circle of pure white light appeared upon the golden wall, as bright as a sun. Moments later, it shot out in a wide beam of searing plasma, which struck Gurvath in the chest. The Vaer Lord's bulk was enveloped in light, his greater form shaking and vibrating as parts broke off or melted in the light's radiance. The dark god's face remained for a moment, glaring. That too was subsumed, and soon the former Vaer governor, the godhead venerated by the people of Aruvis, was no more. I stood in a viewing room on the Amatherium, the satellite clear ahead of me. I watched, my hand against the see-through window, as the shining metallic Naiar fleet began to surround the place I'd once called the Eye of the Gods. Now the beings the people feared as deities were gone, either chased from the world or reduced to mere souls that the Naiar had captured and would soon ransom back to the Vaer command for Atra. By my side stood Zirathra, her big violet eyes gazing out at the scene. "So this is how it ends, eh?" I asked, glancing sideways at her. "The battle is over," she stated. "We have won, and Aruvis is liberated." But did it have to happen like this? It feels cheap. Dirty. Zirathra sighed. I wasn't sure if it was directed at me or the whole scragged-up situation. So, was it all a setup? I feel like they used me. Like Seva Harthus or whoever is really in charge, straight up planned for us to get the blueprints, just so the Vaer could steal them back. Then planned for me to go off, stealth into the fortress, and shut down their defenses so they could complete their fully justified invasion. That about right? It is possible. Any among the rank 3 or higher Naiar could have predicted your actions, using their quantum-enhanced thought process. So they played us. Tricked me into doing something I may have done anyway. They just asked. Is this usual Naiar behavior? No, she said, turning her eyes again to the scene outside the window. 4 of the larger bronze cubes of the Naiar were encircling the Vaer fortress, positioning themselves in a symmetrical pattern around it. The Naiar are overall honorable people, a far cry from the Vaer's general savagery and chaos. Yet at times some among us believe they can skirt the edges of the rules and follow our virtues by the letter, ignoring their spirit. Well, I say it's pretty scragged. Indeed, she nodded. There are corrupt influences in many places. Yet, this is a topic we shall discuss more of in the future. Now is not the time or the place for careless chatter. I couldn't argue. I knew that if there were bad guys among the Naiar, they were probably watching us. From each of the orbiting cubes, there sprayed a glistening stream. Clouds of nanites, said Zirathra. I watched as the metallic clouds reached the surface of the eye and then began to expand. Within the course of 30 seconds, the whole floating fortress was swarming with them, covered in a swirling mass of nanites. In the light of the system's sun they shone, reflective, and as they reached the surface I could see a glittery phenomenon, shimmering beautifully as it covered the fortress like bursts of fireworks. The nanites are devouring the old Vaer structure and consuming its energy to multiply themselves. In the process, they are transforming it to our specifications. Reminds me of Gaxanol, the moon that the Vaer totally covered in their vine weapon. It's like a mirror of that, I said. Zirathra did not respond, but continued to watch with me as the Naiar's cloud consumed the old fortress. Its dark, living exterior fell away as the nanites spread and multiplied, moving along its 9 spokes. In its place shone a clean silver, perfectly polished and reflective. Minutes later, and the remains of the old fortress were utterly gone. What was left was a shining silver star that hovered over my homeworld, looking a little like that horrible black urchin that had long haunted Aruvis' sky. It was beautiful, but stark. A 9-spoked symbol, rising like a guardian, perfect and polished, but hard to look at as it reflected the sunlight so brightly. The nanite cloud was no longer visible, having descended to transform the interior. I thought of how it was remaking the whole thing, the bodies of the defeated Vaer, the various biotech devices, even the nice stuff. My thoughts lingered on Gurvath's shroom dogs, and how those little cuties would shortly be no more. Would their souls be cycled somewhere? Or were they just inanimate fungal flesh? Either way, everything had now changed. I imagined how the people down below must feel, seeing that sudden transformation of a symbol they had always assumed to be permanent, a sign of the divine in their lives. Religions would topple, beliefs would be shattered, new ones would form in their place. Across the surface of Aruvis there would be fear and rioting, but maybe some celebration too. Change. I hoped it would be a good change. The change the people of Aruvis finally needed. Freedom from the constant hardships they had faced since the Vaer blasted them into the Dark Ages. A chance for culture and technology to thrive. For people to grow and love and live their lives. But I still saw that satellite in the sky. The Naiar hadn't blown it up, but repurposed it, inside and out. I wondered too what the Naiar intended to do with it, with the Atra harvesting core. Aruvis was still under watch, even if it was a more benevolent watch. But was it free? As I gazed out upon its contoured surface, watched over by that silvery starball, I wasn't even sure what freedom meant out here in the greater galaxy. Maybe Aruvis wasn't ready for freedom. It needed some guidance first, The world I had known was barely clinging on to civilization, a wasteland inhabited by savage murderers. The people had just been through 3 centuries of extreme scarcity. The Naiar would provide them with the respite they needed to regrow, to recover, to eventually rise back up again and claim their place in the galaxy. Or so I told myself, but I wasn't sure how deeply I believed it. Zarathra gave me a conciliatory half-smile, placing a hand on my shoulders. "The Naiar shall do right by Aruvis," she told me. "After the remaining Vaer are driven from the surface, we will help to restore order and assist the people in creating a healthier world to live on. There will be terraforming as needed to help restore the planet's ecosystem, along with other aid." I believed that, or at least I believed that Zarathra believed it. The Naiar would do their best, for sure. They'd help raise people out of starvation and oppression. And I was pretty sure that the Ruvens would soon be living far nicer lives than before. My world had finally been liberated, though it was a conditional liberty, won through trickery. I almost wanted to feel celebratory about it. Something within me brought a heaviness, an uncertainty. My people might have just traded one master for another. I told myself that I'd be there to help, to watch over them, to make sure the Naiar really did their best. But I wasn't sure if they'd even let me. I had an Atra debt to pay back, after all. So, yeah, despite the victory, things were rather uncertain. I didn't know what the future might hold for Aruvis, or what my place in it would be. I didn't even know if I was on the right side of things. But I did know that this wasn't the end of the story. Not for this planet, and definitely not for me. So I watched with Zarathra as a new day dawned on Aruvis. This is the end of Season 2, but Keph will return in Season 3 of The Space God Memoirs. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Space God Memoirs. Space God is written, performed, and produced by A.M. Arctos. Original musical score by Alpha Colors. Various sound effects created by Industrial Strength Records Incorporated. Please support this podcast by following, rating, and sharing on your favorite social media site. For further info on Space God, its creator, and various other opinions, musings, and thoughts, go to www.spacegodmemoirs.com or follow me on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. If you enjoyed the Space God Memoirs, please consider supporting us by becoming a patron. Check out the Patreon link in our description to learn more.